Now that we have defined what presuppositional philosophy is, it's time to begin our journey by introducing a conception that will play a central role in the coming videos, and that's none other than the notion of truth. In this video, we will address two key questions. First, what do we mean by truth? And second, what elements does truth, or the notion of truth, presuppose in our framework of presuppositional philosophy? We will not only postulate what do we mean by truth, but also introduce the fundamental elements, what we will call the gnoseological atoms, that naturally emerge from this postulate. Let us begin by asking the question, what is truth? At first glance, this might seem like a complex or even overwhelming question, but it's actually simpler than it seems. In everyday life, we constantly distinguish between what is right and wrong, what is true and false, what is correct and incorrect. We even state judgments like the dog walks beside the river, all men are mortal, and it is a legitimate question to ask, what does it mean for these judgments to be true? In other, more sophisticated contexts like science, we speak about models or theories like the laws of gravitation, the standard model of particle physics, natural selection of species, etc., etc. And it is also a legitimate question to ask, what does it mean for these models or these theories to be true? Any form of inquiry that one can imagine presupposes what we call the notion of truth. Even if this notion of truth is initially ambiguous or obscure, we really require this basic criterion to distinguish truth from falsehood, and that is precisely the purpose of this video. Of course, as you can also imagine, many authors have proposed what we call theories of truth, have proposed alternatives for this notion of truth, and we will briefly discuss some of them. We have, for example, the empiricist notion of truth, which states that truth is what is perceived through the senses. That is, truth is grounded in sensory data. It's grounded fundamentally in sensory data. We also have the consensus theory of truth, which states that truth is what is agreed upon by a community, especially a community of experts, scientists, authorities, and so on and so forth. We also have one slightly different theory of truth called the coherence theory of truth, which states that truth consists in logical consistency within a system of beliefs, that it takes a proposition and it considers a proposition true if and only if it coheres with the rest of the system of belief, and it considers a proposition false if it contradicts the system of belief. Finally, we have the theory of truth that we will support, which is the correspondence theory of truth, which states in one of its many forms that truth is the agreement between a proposition and the state of affairs. This correspondence theory of truth has been quite popular among authors in history of philosophy, and we wrote down here some examples of this correspondence theory of truth coming from three main figures of the history of philosophy. First, St. Thomas Aquinas, which defined truth as the correspondence between thing and intellect, or an equation between thing and intellect. Also have Immanuel Kant, which defined truth as the agreement between cognition and its thing. Also have Ludwig Wittgenstein, who defined truth as the agreement or disagreement of the sense of a picture, of the sense that the picture shows, with reality, Wirklichkeit. And we see that in all of these examples, or in any example that one can come up of this correspondence theory of truth, we always encounter two elements. Any correspondence theory of truth requires two elements. One element must correspond to the other to speak about truth in the first place. And in these two elements of the correspondence theory of truth, we can distinguish the representational elements, which people have denoted as intellect, proposition, picture, cognition, representation, and the referential element, the element to which the representational element is referring. And this referential element we can call thing, object, fact, reality, state of affairs. Specifically, in our system of presuppositional philosophy, the general notions that we're going to have for these two elements, the representational element and the referential element, are going to be representation and thing, for the representational element and the referential element respectively. And we will denote the relationship between the two as reference. We will discuss this in a moment. So we have now all the ingredients to build our notion of truth. We will define truth simply as the agreement between a representation and the thing to which it refers. A true representation is a representation that agrees with the thing to which it refers, and a false representation is a representation that fails to agree or disagrees with the thing to which it refers. This notion of truth, of course, falls within the correspondence theory of truth, but as we will see, the consequences of this postulate of truth are going to be immense in our model of presuppositional philosophy. Now you can see that we answered the question that we initially asked. What does it mean for a judgment to be true? A judgment is true if it agrees with the thing to which it refers. What does it mean for a scientific theory to be true? It is true if it agrees with the thing to which it refers, to the objects of experience to which the theory is referring to. And as you see, we have introduced these two elements, these two gnoseological elements of our notion of truth, which are what we call gnoseological atoms. Someone might ask me, well, can you please properly define what do you mean by representation and thing? And the quick answer is that I cannot define them. There is no way I can find a proper definition for representation and thing. They are what we call gnoseological atoms, ingredients, semantic elements that have no further analysis. They have no further analysis in the sense that we cannot find smaller pieces in which these elements are built upon. This is the reason why we can only elucidate the use or provide examples for these gnoseological atoms, and this is exactly what we just did. We provided the correct use for these two gnoseological atoms in the notion of truth. These two gnoseological atoms, representation and thing, play the role of the general representational and referential element in our notion of truth, respectively. It is from these atoms that we build what we call gnoseological molecules. We need these gnoseological atoms to define other elements that we will call molecules, in analogy to atoms and molecules in chemistry. But of course, this is not a chemistry lecture. This is a lecture on presuppositional philosophy, so we're not talking about chemical atoms and chemical molecules, but gnoseological atoms and gnoseological molecules, if one can also phrase it as semantic atoms and semantic molecules. And the relation between these two gnoseological atoms is what we will call a referent. It's what we call reference. It's a gnoseological relation, and we will state this, or we will phrase this as a representation refers to a thing, a representation R refers to a thing T, or R, right arrow T. We will also depict it like this. And we will see later that representations can also refer to other representations. And we will depict this as R, right arrow R prime. The representation R refers to the representation R prime. So, as I said, we cannot define what representation and thing are, but we can elucidate them. We already gave some usage of these two gnoseological atoms. Let us now elucidate these gnoseological atoms through examples. So, the gnoseological atom representation is going to be the first piece of our system of presuppositional philosophy, together with the notion of truth, and is going to be this representational element in our model to denote anything that can function as an attempted picture of reality, a depiction of facts, a partial depiction of something in general. And examples of these representations are the judgment, the dog walks beside the river, the image of a tree I form in my imagination, the raw sense data, the conception of number 7, number 8, number 9, even the conception of number in general. And of course, we can build, or we can define gnoseological molecules out of this gnoseological atom. We cannot define what a representation is. It is the highest genus that we can find in our system, but we can define species of representations through definitions. And these examples, or these gnoseological molecules that we construct out of the gnoseological atom of representation are, for example, the judgments as intellectual representations formed by the unification of conceptions, cognitions, representations with a determinate reference to a thing, intuitions, representations with an immediate reference to a thing, etc., etc. As you see, out of this gnoseological atom, we can build what we call a taxonomy of representations. And this is going to play a crucial role in understanding the theorems of presuppositional philosophy, because it is thanks to this taxonomy, it is thanks to these gnoseological molecules that the theorems are going to be written in a comprehensible way, that we will be able to trace back the semantic meaning of every gnoseological molecule to the gnoseological atoms. So we described what a representation is. Now it's time to describe what a thing is. What is the gnoseological atom thing? We cannot define this gnoseological atom. We will elucidate it, and we will also provide examples of gnoseological molecules out of this gnoseological atom. So things, or entities as we will also call them, are this referential element which is the intended correlate of a representation. Is that element whose agreement with the representations constitutes truth. It allows us to speak of facts, states of affairs, the world, etc., etc. Examples of things are the actual dog and the actual river, that the judgment the dog walks beside the river refers to everyday objects of experience, beds, phones, tables, computers, chairs, and even nominal entities or abstract entities. We will call them also things, such as God, angels, the souls. This we will see later exactly the role they play in our system of gnoseological, in our system of gnoseology, in our system of epistemology. But for now, we can see that these two elements play two fundamental roles in the system, and we must remember exactly how to use them properly. Examples of gnoseological molecules, which are constructed out of the gnoseological atom thing, are thing in itself, an undetermined, an epistemically unconditioned thing; object, a cognizable thing; appearance, an undetermined thing of an empirical intuition, and so on and so forth. We will also build over time our taxonomy of things. As we progress in the series of videos, we will construct more sophisticated notions of things, which we will build upon using all the gnoseological atoms that we will accumulate over the series of videos. We so far just described two, representation and thing, which we need to define our notion of truth. So let us finish this video by providing a quick summary. We described our notion of truth we defined our notion of truth as the agreement between a representation and the thing to which it refers. We said that we call a true representation if the representation agrees with the thing to which it refers, if it agrees with the states of affairs. And we call a representation false if the representation fails to agree or disagrees with the thing to which it refers, if it disagrees with the state of affairs. We introduced the two gnoseological atoms of representation and thing, and we said that the relation between these two gnoseological atoms is what we call reference. So now that we have these two ingredients, which are the two gnoseological atoms, and the relation, the reference, the gnoseological relation of reference, we can introduce our notion of truth, and we are legitimized. We have found some legitimacy in this use of representation of thing in the next series of videos, because they are necessary requirements to speak about truth, which we want to speak, of course, in our course of presuppositional philosophy, because we're going to talk about cognition of objects, which is going to be a kind of relation between representation and thing. So thank you all for your attention. I hope this video was useful to understand what are we going to mean by truth in the next videos, and I hope to see you all in the next series of videos.